Hi, this is Ruth Bruner, and I'm here with Barbara Krautshun, and we are at Lakeview Park in Severance, because it's quieter than the park named after your mother. What was that?
Francis Brownell Memorial Park.
Yeah, right on the corner. The four-way stop of Severance is now a busy intersection. So today is Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, and I'm most interested in interviewing you because of the history of your mother was the postmistress, your uncle, your grandfather before that?
My grandmother.
Grandmother.
She was first.
She was the first. So tell us about that and when that was.
I'm not exactly sure of the dates, but I know she retired in 1953. She was 70 years old, or 75, and she was very angry that they made her retire. Because she was still perfectly capable of doing that job.
In 1953, were you born then?
Oh yeah, I was 5 years old when she retired.
5 years old, okay. So you're born in?
48.
48. And what do you remember about Severance from your early years? Because you've seen a lot of changes.
Everybody knew everybody, so if you were a child, you better behave because everybody knew you and they were going to tell on you if you didn't.
Okay. How many people lived here at that time?
About 105.
About 105.
And that population stayed the same for years.
Okay.
Until they finally built the first subdivision.
All right. So what was the when you would go to the post office or, you know, the postmistress, when you go see grandma, what kinds of?
When I was a baby, she had a big mail sorting table with sides on it. My mom would leave me there sometimes when she would go shopping. So I'd be sleeping on the mail sorting table. And I just always remember being at the post office. I'd go see my grandmother when she was there, and then my uncle when he took over, and then my mom. I'd get off the bus at the post office when I got home from school.
Okay. So did you go to school in Severance ever, or did you
Yes.
always? Okay.
I
where
went
was?
6 years to school in Severance.
All right. And what school was that? And where was it located?
Severance Grade School. It was on the main street.
All right.
It was on this side of the main street, the west side.
The west side of the main street. Okay. So now in the Francis Brownell Memorial Park, there's some an old schoolhouse there. Is that what that is? And now
Yes, it was the original school. That's where my mother and her brothers went to grade school.
Okay. And the playground equipment
Came from the school that I went to.
Okay.
The old slide that you were talking about.
Oh, the one they moved that to Park School.
Yeah.
And boy, when the kids would wax that, they'd say, "Oh, Miss Bruner,
Yeah.
take a ride." You'd catch air.
Yeah, we used to, that was before they had school lunch, so you brought your lunch. And you'd have your sandwich in wax paper because we didn't have sandwich bags then. So after lunch, you'd sit on your piece of wax paper and slide down the slide.
Oh. So how many kids were in your school or classes? And
I think when we went to Windsor, there was about 9 of us that went to Windsor out of the 6th grade class.
when they did the consolidation, you mean?
Yes.
Or okay. And what year did they do the consolidation? Was it?
It was after, they consolidated once and dropped the school down to 6 grades because
Okay.
before that it was 8. And then later they consolidated and closed it.
And
tore
closed
down.
it. Okay. So what was it like going to a small, was you at the 3 rooms here in Severance, or how many classrooms
No,
were there?
there were 8.
8 and one for
Actually,
every
there were
grade.
12 classrooms originally.
12.
Yeah, because originally it was 1 through 12.
1 through 12.
But they got consolidated down into the 3rd and 4th grade were together, 5th and 6th, and 7th and 8th.
Now Severance has its own high school, and
Yeah, it's amazing.
you know, so it's come back. Huh?
Yeah.
It's come back. But all right. So how were you? Like your mother, was that an elected position to be the postmistress?
No,
or?
you took a test,
Oh.
and the person that got the highest grade got the job.
Mm-hmm.
And when my uncle got it, they both went to take the test, And my mother got a higher score, but he had 5 points of veterans preference because he was in World War II, so he got the job.
So he got the job. And he, okay.
Yeah, I think he was there 8 years, and then my mother got the job. I don't even think anybody took the test when she wanted the job. Nobody else was interested.
Yeah. Do you remember what the pay was or the hours or any of that?
I remember when I went to work at Montfort's, I was making more money than my mother,
Yeah.
which was sad because she'd been there quite a few years.
Uh-huh. All right. So did they have mailboxes that you turned the dial on, or was it a key or a
Yeah,
combination?
it was the old dial boxes for quite
For
a while.
combinations?
Yeah. Only, my mother said when she was a child, the postmaster was really mean, and if you didn't know your combination, you didn't get your mail. But she never did that to anybody. If they couldn't get into their box, she would let them in.
She would give them their mail because she
Yes.
knew them by face and name and
Yes.
and that. So, all right. And then you moved back to Severance in 1976.
Mm-hmm.
And
I bought the house that I grew up in,
okay. Where was that at?
232 2nd Street.
And what is it still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Dennis Guffey lives in it now.
Okay. And how did you get involved in the community then?
My mother was on the town board, and she wanted to be off of the town board. But at the time, they very strenuously said you can't quit unless you have somebody to take your place. So she had me. So she got to quit.
She got to quit. And so how long did you serve on town board?
I'm not sure exactly of the years,
Yeah.
but I filled one term for a mayor who moved, and then I had one term for myself.
Oh, as mayor.
But
So-
I had been on the town council for quite a few years before that.
Okay. So what were some of the big issues that you had to deal with?
This subdivision right here.
Right? So, okay.
Yeah, we planned this subdivision, and then
Is it
the bottom
Lakeview?
yes, the bottom fell out of the economy, and they didn't build it for many years, but we spent hours planning.
Wow.
So it was nice to finally see it built.
How many town employees did you have at that time in the 70s, 80s?
We didn't even have a maintenance person. We were taking turns mowing the lawn at the town hall.
Where was town hall?
That was the church where we were this morning.
Okay.
And we hired a dog catcher, and he didn't work out at all. And he ended up suing us.
Because, yeah.
He said he hurt his back lifting something.
Oh, okay.
And when there was a stray dog, he usually had me catch the dog, and then he would take it.
So-
I was kind of good with animals. I always
Yeah.
liked them.
So population change, when did you see the boom come to Severance? I mean, you had 105 in the 50s, 60s, still 105?
70s, not until after this subdivision came in. Until that happened, things stayed pretty much the same because there weren't any houses for them to move into.
Okay. And what year was Lakeview pretty much?
I don't know, I don't have all that information.
Yeah,
That
I
would
know.
be in-
I
That would be
remember-
in the town records.
Yeah.
I just don't have it.
Yeah, probably 80s, 90s, yeah. So, all right. What buildings in Severance do you remember as a kid, or what things do you remember going and doing as a kid?
Well,
If
there
you
was
lived
a
on Second
store
Street.
in town then,
Okay.
a grocery store, and it had candy. And then there was another little store down near the railroad track that had a few groceries.
Called Newt's?
Yeah.
Okay. And what, would you ride your bike there, walk there?
Usually ride my bike.
Okay.
We all got around on bicycles. There were quite a few kids that lived in town then, and of course, we all knew each other, so we spent time together. And on Saturdays, two of the girls and I would go over to the elevator. They closed at noon, and there was a piece of cement that had a slope in it. So we took our roller skates that you clamped onto your shoes and would roller skate in the afternoon.
Was that the elevator where the new town maintenance
Yes,
building is now, right behind Bruce's Bar?
yes.
Okay. So that was fun. What kind of, was there restaurants in town or places to eat or?
You could get a few things at Newt's Place and food at Bruce's. I can remember when I was in grade school, if nobody was going to be home to fix my lunch, they'd give me $1 and I could go to Bruce's and get me a hamburger for lunch and then go back to school.
Wow. So for people who maybe don't know, what is Bruce's?
It's a bar and restaurant that's been here for many, many years. I think Bruce and I talked about it one time. I think I was 5 years old when he came to town.
Okay, okay. And where did, I mean, if you knew Bruce, where did he come from, or why did he choose Severance, or?
I think the opportunity to buy that establishment, because the people that had it wanted to get rid of it, so I think he got a good price on it. He made a big success out of it.
Yeah, he did. How did, I mean, tell me a little bit of the Bruce's, story that you remember. He had goose blinds, he had Rocky Mountain oysters, and
And then he expanded to do the motorcycle rally in the Fallout. That was a big thing.
okay,
Thousands of motorcycles in this little town.
okay. So, did you ever hunt in any of his goose blinds, or?
No, but one year we lived up on a farm that they were leasing, and we didn't realize that we were living where they were going to be hunting geese, and it was like we woke up to World War III or something. There was shooting all around the house.
Did you ever get to go in and see the blinds when they weren't there, what they were like, or?
Usually they were full of bottles of booze, empty bottles of booze, but by then I was an adult. I wasn't too interested in things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And then they have a thing where they would clean the geese for you?
Yes.
And
you could take them, in the one end of the bar, they had a kitchen area where they cleaned geese.
wow, wow. And where would a lot of the goose hunters come from?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And of course, they fed them too. And after the store had gone out of business for a while, Bruce owned the old store building. And
Newt's?
if they wanted to, no, the one that was on the corner. It was
Charman's?
Petrie Grocery.
Petrie?
Yeah, Charman's it was originally, but then Petrie's bought it. And he would let them sleep in there if they wanted to.
Petrie's Grocery, how big was it?
It wasn't very big.
Okay.
When it was Sam and Molly's Grocery, they had a family that they let live in the back of it. I went to school with their children. I think they had like 7 or 8 children. And they just let them live in the back.
Oh, okay. So then how did Bruce start with the Rocky Mountain oysters? And that's why the bulls say it's not fair,
I really don't know because like I said, when he came to town, I was 5.
Yeah. Okay. Any other stories you remember about Bruce? Ruth was his last name, right? R-U-T-H or?
I remember one year he gave me, when one of the lottos back east was so huge, he gave me a ticket. He gave them out to his friends and he said, if you win, you split it with me. But it was like millions of dollars. Unfortunately, we didn't win. But
Yeah. All right.
he was a good person, a good friend.
He was a good person, a good friend. He understood kind of what it took to make a town. Did he ever try and influence your vote?
No,
Nope. Okay.
but when I was on town council, he'd keep the bar open on town board meeting nights if we wanted to come over and have a drink afterwards.
How late would town council meetings go?
That depended on who was talking.
So, all right. So, what are the things that people, it's Severn's 100th anniversary this year, 2020, so it was 1920 when it was established as a town? Is that correct?
No,
No, okay.
18.
So it's more, yeah, I would think.
Well, the post office was 90 something.
So it's 100 and maybe 50 years? Is that why? It's a big anniversary. We'll have to find that out. But,
Yeah. My grandparents were living here in 1920.
okay.
Because my mother was 6 years old then.
Yeah. So, why do you think people want to live in a small town?
Maybe because of the things that I told you about, knowing everybody. We've kind of lost that here. You don't know everybody now. It's still a smaller town, but it's not like it was. But you have to grow to survive.
Yeah. How big is Severance now?
The last I heard, it was over 5,000.
Yeah, 7, 5. I mean, it's yeah. So, what were some of the hard things you saw come about because of growth?
Well, one of the hard things I saw wasn't really because of growth. It was when the elevator burned.
Oh, okay.
I thought the whole town was going to go.
Oh, wow. Was it what caused that? Just
I don't know. I don't know if they ever came up with a cause, but
the heat and what time of the year was it?
yeah, I think it was fall.
Fall. Okay. And what kinds of things did they store in the elevator?
Beans.
Beans. Because I remember we used to go out for that was pretty much the bean elevator. Now, what other businesses was there that
When I was
closed?
small, there was a depot here.
A train depot.
Yeah. And there was a hardware store, and the grocery store, the post office, a blacksmith shop. And when my mother was a child, there was a doctor here.
Really?
Where the Severance Inn used to be, there were a couple of other businesses in that building. The doctor was in there.
Yeah. The Severance Inn was just north of the community church, or what was the?
And just across
school.
the street from the Quonset building that used to be the blacksmith shop that's now a house.
It's now a house. Okay. All right. So, what are some of the wishes? You know, now it's 2020. What are some of the wishes that you have for a town that you've loved and cared for so much?
Oh, I hope that it won't become a high crime area and that people will still be friendly and get along with their neighbors.
Yeah.
Keep some of the small town atmosphere even though it's bigger.
Even though it's bigger. So, well, we've had a lovely visit. Is there other things that I should ask you? If there was a question I was going to ask you, what would you wish it would be? And what would we like to tell? Anything you'd like to tell us about?
Oh, there's lots of stories about the people that used to be here, but probably anybody that listens to this won't remember any of them.
Well, just tell me some of the names, because you'd be surprised. Some of them might. So what were some of the people that you remember?
There were two Whitmore families. There was the Whitbeck family, the Tallmans, the Middletons, the Simpsons. And a lot of them I'm related to on my father's side of the family. My grandmother on that side was a Tallman.
Do any of them, their relatives still, or descendants still live in town?
No,
No?
I don't think there's any. My grandson maybe is one of the few people that's descended from somebody that lived here.
Okay. Now, how about the Lindblads, the Linds, that they were farmers north of town, right?
They were.
So some of them, they still live here, or?
Connie lives here.
So, what do you think those people would say if they came back and saw Severance today?
I don't think my grandmother would like it. She never was a big fan of growth. She was happy with things the way they were, but like I said, it has to change in order to survive.
Yeah. Well, it's very peaceful here today at Lakeview Park compared to the intersection where we tried the interview.
And this park is very nice. I've had some functions here for groups that I belong to because it's peaceful and quiet and it has the shelter.
Yeah. What kind of, well, that's another good question. What kind of clubs and groups were there, you know, in Severance, or that you did belong to or still belong to?
I didn't belong to clubs here in Severance, but my grandmother and my mother did. My grandmother was one of the original members of the Severance Progressive Club.
Okay.
And my mother belonged to the Severance Chore Girls.
What was that?
Severance Chore Girls, it was Home Extension Club.
Okay.
And that club existed for 50 years, and I think the other one did too.
What kinds of activities and things did they do?
They usually had a picnic every summer. I remember going to the picnics. And the home extension, you know, that they teach you things.
Yeah.
So my mother did a lot of crafty things.
Wow. So are you part of any clubs today or any?
I am, but they're not from here. I'm with a quilters group in Windsor.
Okay.
You're going to go see Ruth, she's in the group.
Okay. Yeah, Ruth Firestein.
Yes.
So.
And I belong to a club for doll collectors in Greeley.
Oh, okay. Wow. So that brings up the question, you know, with everything going to virtual, we're in COVID and a lot of virtual Zoom meetings or school being, you know, half-time for Zoom online. What do you think what's the takeaway from having clubs and community activities and things that you belong to that is maybe missing in the 2020s?
It's very impersonal. We've been doing doll club on the phone. We're going to go to Zoom so we can at least see each other. And we haven't been doing anything for quilt group. We finally got together last week to see the quilt that we made. It had come back from the quilter, so
Yeah,
it's just not the same.
it's not the same. So before we close then, what advice would you give the next generation? That's my
I don't give advice. I think they're doing fine.
well, that's probably why yeah. I think we all, yeah. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
I'm very honored to have met and get to interview somebody with such a heritage and history of Severance who did a lot to form this town into what it is today. So thank you for your service, thank you for your dedication, and for the history that is yours through your family.